All right, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this first session for the ACA 915. This is Atlassian Cloud Foundations. This series will differ a little bit from the prior ones that I've done. And that's mainly because this knowledge is less hands-on and more about how the system works, conceptual, etc. For example, in the prior series, when we talked about Jira software, we could open up Jira software and really see everything that the certification was showing us. We can do some of that here in our admin panel, but some of the knowledge in here, it'll be a little bit more slide heavy and it'll be a little bit less hands-on. So just a different look at these tools. That said, it is still important stuff to know, especially, well, kind of obviously if we're using cloud, and many folks are, and many groups may be shifting into cloud. Understanding how it's set up, how the subscription tiers work, how users are set up, how the tools all integrate is an incredibly important thing, because when we're using them, we need to understand how these things all interact. And that then helps us understand what's going on and better support our team and ourselves. So we're going to jump in. Again, we've got a bit more slides. I will try and weave some hands-on stuff in here. Some of you have already found the chat, which is great. Emily, Frank, Justin, welcome. Debbie, good to see you. Frank, congrats on registering for both those exams. Frank is referring to the Atlassian Certified Professional, so the more admin tier. The ones we're going to talk about today are the associate level, the ACA, Atlassian Certified Associate, intended more for everyday users and general folks. So the good news is we won't get too deep into crazy concepts or topics. The expectation here is we are all just kind of regular users curious about how things work or need to prove knowledge to ourselves or others. And I need to get, why is it not going away? Just a minute while I fix my screen. There we go. All right, so a quick introduction. My name is Rob. I know many of you have been in these before, but I always like to introduce myself just in case folks haven't worked with us before. And I've had my career in information technology. I started off as the IT help desk technician. I was the first thing I ever did in IT was bring someone a monitor. And if I go back further to university, the first thing I ever did was drag a bunch of giant CRTs, those cathode ray tube monitors, to a recycling dump. So I started out at the very entry level of information technology. Since then, I've had a number of different roles ranging from help desk consultant to help desk manager, project manager, traveling consultant, systems manager, etc. And I've been using Atlassian since about 2003, and I was forced into it. I showed up at my job and they just said, yes, we use Confluence, and that was my training, and that was my entire introduction to everything Atlassian. Since then, I've become an Atlassian certified practitioner at ACP. I have a series on Mondays that covers those certifications, so if you're curious what that's like, feel free to join us. It's the same time, same YouTube channel, same Bevy sign up. But I also do on Fridays the associate level. And I do this because my training was so lackluster, it didn't exist. And I realized I'm not on the screen anymore. Why am I not there? While I have my crack team fix that, I will just keep talking. There we go. I had no training, and this made it very challenging for me to figure out, how do I use these systems and how do I do my job in Confluence, in Jira, in Atlassian? And that was really frustrating. That made it hard for me to do what I wanted to do, but I could figure it out. I took it as a challenge. Now, many people don't like that approach, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to beat your head into a computer keyboard until you figure it out. So I do these training sessions. They also help me learn. So selfishly, I get to learn a lot out of these. And that little fact at the bottom, I've neven been an org admin. This is the person who can manage, has admin access to the organization level. And we'll talk about that in this series. But I've never been the Jira admin at my organization. Wow. Justin lost a CRT. And these were those big TVs. For folks who aren't familiar with them, they were very heavy and they were very deep, because they had all these tubes in them, like the original TVs. They were murder to move around. Now, interaction, we are on YouTube, and this is great because you can watch this later. There'll be a recording, you can share it with someone, but interaction is challenging. So please use the chat. It is just over my left shoulder on the right side of your screen, probably. Please jump in there. I will ask questions just to see how folks are doing and what you know. You'll also see other folks in the chat, like I have this group of about a dozen folks. Morning, Kythra. Good to see you. You snuck in there. We're just more open to sharing and chatting. But if you're comfortable, please jump in with your questions, with your observations, with your challenges. And if you can help someone else out, if you know the answer, please jump in and help them. Excuse me. You don't have to wait for me to answer it. It's great to see folks in the chat helping each other, because that's another amazing way to learn, sharing what you know. So don't just wait for me to notice the question. There's some other things you can do in here. You can save this video or share it. So if there's someone else you work with who might benefit from this, click that share button, you'll get a link. And of course, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. That gives me good feedback on what you're curious about and want to learn. A quick agenda, and Kythra's going to yell at me for where my little happy brain is, and I'll fix that later, I promise, my friend. We can't cover absolutely everything in an hour, which is why this is split up into 5 sections. But we're going to cover some basics on what is this exam and why would we want to take it. And then we'll dig into cloud tiers, security, orgs, and sites, and then our something called Guard. So this is kind of the start of subscriptions and users in Confluence Cloud. And just to be clear, all of this impacts Confluence Cloud. Almost none of what we talk about will impact Data Center, and these are 2 different products. That said, if you're on Data Center, this is still good knowledge. Your organization may choose to move to cloud at some point in time, or you may find yourself at an organization that uses cloud. So just a quick question. How comfortable are you with cloud subscriptions? And this 1 to 5 rating is a 1 that you're not comfortable at all, and a 5 is you're super comfortable. And this is just a question to gauge, how familiar are you with how they work or what they are? Or not familiar at all, which is completely okay. Debbie, there's always something you can break. 4.5, a 4. Ooh, Chad is a 5. Love that. Okay. A lot of 4s and 5s. I love this. This was a very good course for me to put together because I went into it going, obviously there's 4 tiers of cloud and there's users in them. And then I kept tripping over more stuff that I personally was unaware of. Now I've highlighted the wrong text on this slide, of course. Way to go, Rob. But we're going to talk a bit about this exam. This is the ACA-915. Now, you do not have to take this exam to get good information from these sessions. So that's the first thing to consider. If you just jumped in, you're like, whoa, I don't want to take an exam. You don't have to. The important thing for me is that we learn something and get a little bit better, but this should get you used to and prepped for the exam if that's what you would like to do. Now, it's broken up into 3 main chunks: subscriptions and user management. That's what we're talking about today. The next chunk is cloud community and support. And last are the products and integrations. Now, I've set this up so the first session is for the first chunk, the second session, the second chunk, sessions 3 and 4 are for the products and integrations, and session 5 will review everything. And we'll also, in session 5, talk about how to sign up for the exam and what it's like to take one of these certifications exams. So another question is, why are you interested in the course? And this is an important question, understanding why we are learning something or why we want to do something, because this will help guide what you do next or how you approach learning. If you want to take this because your boss said, hey, Rob, you need the 915 to keep your job, that is much different than you're just curious and interested. If you're doing this because you're curious and interested, that's much different than you realize there are knowledge gaps and you need to fill them. And that's my bucket. I know I have gaps. I just don't know where they are. So you don't have to share this why, but just consider it as we're going through this. Why are we all spending time to do this thing together and improve ourselves? Justin reinforcing what you've already learned and learning what you don't know. Need more info on the user side. Chad, if there's specific things in there, like specific things you're aware of on the user side, please surface those. That'll help us out. And Chad, I think you're in there already. We do have a Discord server for live chat for additional support and additional community outside of these. Now, there's no wrong reason to learn the ACA-915. Some people do it to build skills, just to get more knowledge. That's me. I understand that there are gaps, and it sounds like Justin and I are kind of in the same boat. Excuse me. Do we have another? No, there's only two Justins. Okay, I was a little scared there. Atlassian Mojo took all the ACP and now is going through all the ACA. A completionist. I love that. That is my selfish approach as well, Atlassian Mojo. I'm hoping by the end of a year I'll have gone through all of these, and so that'll help. Other people do it for validation, though. They want to prove to themselves or prove to someone else or show someone else that they know these things. Some jobs will require certain certifications. That is less common with the ACA level, more common with the professional series. But you may stumble across a job in a year that says, hey, if you want this job, you have to have ACA-915 or some other certification. And again, there's no wrong reason. It's important, though, that we understand our reason. So if we want to take it and earn it, we can then motivate ourselves and keep going. Find the gaps, fill the gaps. Yes, Guy, through that is my approach. And someone has to know how this works. It might as well be you. How comfortable are you with cloud tiers? So we're moving away from just talking about the certification. Cloud tiers, excuse me. I don't know if I can edit that. Let me, here we go. Tiers, there we go. So another question for us, again, digging into kind of the meat of Cloud Foundations. Now, there are different cloud products that are handled slightly differently. Most of them have tiers. So I think of the Jiras and the Confluences of the world. Justin, I saw that for a second, and my knee-jerk response was, there's only 4. I then realized, hey, you're talking about your comfort level with them. Yes, other Justin. I have to find a better naming convention for the two of you. Frank, that's an interesting comment. You think the ACP should include the ACAs. I disagree. This is a different type of information, right? It's a different focus. Yes, the skills can overlap and be similar. They do definitely need to be separate, but I also think the knowledge that I train an admin on will be different than and should be different than the knowledge I train an end user on. No worries, Justin. That's perfect. So for the cloud products with tiers, there's usually 4 tiers. We've got free, which is shock free, standard, premium, and then enterprise. Now, the higher up you go, the more you pay. And that's because you get more stuff. And we'll dig into each of these tiers, but typically the higher the tier, the more uptime you have. So you get a guarantee of your uptime, and that means it won't go offline unexpectedly. So at a 999 uptime, we call that a 3 nines, will go offline 3 or 4 days a year. And it'll crash randomly, those kind of things. But they can guarantee it won't be worse than that. Enterprise, if you can see, gets this 9995. So a little bit better. So the more you pay, the better grade you get. You also get more support. You'll notice, you get regional support, you get community support at the free tiers, all the way up to 24/7 support for everything. Other big ones are things like automations and Atlassian Intelligence or AI that you get as you pay up higher. So that free tier, I'll show you how to make a free account hopefully by the end of this, but you get up to 10 people in it, and it's free forever, which is pretty cool. It is limited mainly in security. So you can't do things like restrict stuff as much, and you don't get as many automations. So those are the big things to consider. In the free tier of, say, Confluence, you get 10 automations a month to run. So this is when we talk about free and the frustration some groups have. It's they are unable to do certain things, again, because they aren't paying for it, which can be a challenge. That said, you get a lot of other great features. I don't work with many groups that use free that are organizations. They tend to pay for it, but I use free on my own for a lot of my own projects. So typically this is great for personal use or very small groups that need to stand something up and get going. Justin, I'll talk about our friend Rovo as we get up the tiers. The next level up, which I personally haven't been on, is called Standard. And this is the first one with no user limits, but you pay by person. So the term you might see is per user per month or per employee per month. And each product has a different dollar amount. Now, depending on how you purchase your products, you might go through a reseller or a partner, or you might get a bundle. This number can change. But we can see here on Confluence, it's about $5 per person per month. but we get additional things like security, more automations, and that lack of a user limit. So there are some groups that are on this tier, and there's nothing wrong with being on any of these tiers, but this is the first one that we're paying for. But it doesn't include things like artificial intelligence, and it limits our automations, which can be a massive constraint. 100 automation rules run per month. Try to catch up on the chat here. The next tier up is premium. This is what I tend to be on. And Emily's got a mix of standard and premium. Kythra uses free Jira, but pays for Confluence. Interesting. I'm curious, my friend, what was the tipping point to get you into Confluence Premium versus free? Because I use free and free for my own personal use, mostly because I'm cheap. Premium tier is what is, they say, recommended. So when you go talk to Atlassian, they want to push you to premium. It's about twice as expensive in this instance as standard, but it gives you things like Atlassian Intelligence, that guarantee of uptime, and then actual human support or more human support. So this is what most companies that use cloud will probably be on, and in my experience, they have been on. Atlassian Mojo, I'll back up one to standard. It just says automation runs. So, and we'll dig into the site in a moment. Just as read, I interpret that to mean the trigger. It triggers. It doesn't have to be successful. And when I think about why that's tiered this way, this is getting a bit deep. The automation has some computational cost to Atlassian. Their infrastructure has to do something. So I can understand why we have to pay for that privilege. Nothing is truly free in that sense. We will talk about what powers Atlassian Cloud as we go. Debbie, Confluence before and then upgraded to Jira Premium. Oh, interesting. And that's a great point, Debbie. Understanding how these tiers work, and I'll move my head back to the proper side. Sorry, folks. Understanding how these tiers work can then empower you to argue for or get access to the tools that you think you need. In this example, maybe my team is suffering because they can't run as many automations. I could then go to my boss or my IT team and say, hey, we need to upgrade. Here's the cost, but here's all the stuff we can automate and get rid of if we do that. Or here's the value of these features. And so I have in the past done a calculation, how many hours do we save with an automation compared to the cost of the licensing, and kind of shown mathematically it's worth it. And that's where this knowledge is very helpful. Chad, I'm stealing your idea, premium at work, and then freebie for personal. Melanie likes the AI item availability. And that's where Atlassian seems to be putting a lot into its artificial intelligence products. There are two big ones you'll see mentioned. One is AI Atlassian Intelligence, which I think is just now their overall term for their AI, and specifically something called Rovo, which back in April they announced Rovo will now be included with Premium and Enterprise. And this is their ability to connect into different systems and make what they call AI agents, and give you kind of one thing to go to for all your search needs, all your tying information together. This is new. I haven't played with Rovo yet, and it's something that if you saw in the chat, a lot of folks are getting, I won't say spammed, but overwhelmed with information. But that tool can be very useful, and that tool, having access to AI in Confluence, can be another argument for, hey, we should get Premium, because it lets you do things like search across up to 50 or 60 different systems. It lets you do things like automatically generate work items, based on a Loom recording of a video or something. Kythra, you should just get a third cat and name it Confluence, and then it will be your third cat. Oh, Justin, here's another, this is another good argument for studying certifications like this one. Your organization is paying per person. It's possible people have access to Jira who don't need it. And depending on that, you can save the company a ton of money just by understanding how these things are assigned. Melanie, AI has been a true game changer, extremely helpful for defining things and pulling out information. Yes, I feel that for me, AI is like any other tool For example, if I'm on the enterprise tier, I get access to additional security and analytics. However, if I don't apply it and if I don't look for ways to use it, I don't get that value. So I'm glad to hear you're finding ways to use it and finding it useful at the same time. The highest tier is called Enterprise, and you'll notice there's no dollar amount. This one requires you to talk to the sales department, but typically this is for very large organizations, over 1,000 workers, even bigger. But it gets you access to APIs, it gets you unlimited automations. Again, it's intended for companies of thousands of people working together. So it makes sense that they have all of this great stuff that at the lower tiers we might not need as much. Here's a leading question. How concerned are you with security? Debbie, I like how you all have a policy to remove licenses that aren't in use. This is a constant struggle for system admins where you have someone who has a license and no, I need it. Like, you haven't logged in 3 months. I'm going to take it away. So I'm glad your organization has thought through that. And managing users, Emily H., is a big headache. It is a job. It's maintenance. It's the things we have to do on a daily basis to keep things going. It's like, doing the laundry at home or cleaning up the dishes. It's not fun necessarily, but it's very necessary. And in the case of user management, you can save a ton of money, which can be a very good thing. And you can reduce the possibility of some kind of security problem or incident. Kythra, there's an automation we need, removing a user if they haven't logged in for a certain number of days. I agree. Chad, not too worried about security because you have nothing to do with it. Wow. I'm asking this question because when an organization, and this is where the 915 might be a bit different than other certifications. It's not just considered with how do I use the tool. It's concerned with how does the organization consider it, and at the organization level, how does it work? And not my chair, not my problem. Yep. Security is important to everyone, Frank saying. AI respects permissions. Yeah, so there's different things we think about when we think about security. Now, Atlassian approaches security as a shared responsibility for their cloud products. So when we pay money for a cloud product, whether it's, an Atlassian product or Google Mail or something, we are basically paying for someone else to manage the infrastructure. Software as a service, SaaS, means someone else is doing all the hard work of running the servers and keeping that going so I can enjoy the software. On the flip side, there's something like data center where I get the software, but I have to manage the computers. And that's a lot more work because I need an expert who knows how to do that. So Atlassian will secure the infrastructure. So that this is their responsibility, and I misspelled infrastructure. I don't even know how to pronounce that word. Infrastructure? There we go. An extra N. So Atlassian for security is saying, hey, we'll make sure the infrastructure you're using is as secure as possible. Now, it's built on top of AWS, Amazon Web Service. So Atlassian is even kind of shoving off some of that. Atlassian isn't running its own server farms. The physical device it's running on is on AWS. So AWS is responsible for that. Thank you, Frank. Usually people yell at me for my typos, but I'm glad you like that one. Justin, has gone through a ransomware attack. Security is very important. Yes. There is always a balance between too much security and not being able to do anything and not enough and getting attacked. But here, when we use Atlassian products, we have 3 people working on it. AWS handles the servers themselves, the physical device, physical security, those things. But we as the customers are part of this responsibility. I, as a Confluent space admin, can configure my space to be publicly accessible. So if I do that and someone sees something they shouldn't, that's on me. Amazon is responsible for making sure the servers are physically secured and running properly. So if they break down, that's on them. And then the Atlassian software is controlled by Atlassian. So they need to make sure it's as secure as possible. So it's not just about us being secure or just Atlassian. It's really these 3 groups. Oh, Justin joined at the end of it. That would be a fascinating story to share over in Discord, Justin, if you're, depending on what you can. I'll drop the Discord link right there. Now, in cloud security, Atlassian handles most of this. we as customers do not have to worry about encrypting our data or, access controls into the server. We don't have to worry about audits of the code or of the software. And they also do things like get third parties to come in and do penetration testing, pen testing. Now, this isn't to say that we as customers don't do these things at the configuration level. I will still go in, and folks have mentioned in the chat, and go audit who has a license to make sure that everyone who has a license should. I will go in and make sure, that the secure pages are actually secured. But I don't have to worry about this at the code level. I don't have to worry about the source code for Cloud or source code for Jira. It's just there. That's Atlassian problem. I don't have to worry about paying some third-party expert, super sleuth to go in and try and break the code. That's all Atlassian's problem. Now, encryption is a big one, and there's two flavors of encryption you'll see. And this can show up on the exam, but it's an important concept. There's encryption at rest and encryption in transit. And you may also have actually seen this in the news talking about different apps, how we communicate or how we work. But encryption at rest means when the data is in the database just sitting around, it's encrypted. So if someone gets it, they can't see it without the keys. They have to have access to those things. And so that's good because it means if someone breaks into your database, they'll see a bunch of gibberish. Now, of course, if they've also stolen the keys or have other things, that's a different challenge. But the point is, if they grab the server and run away, or if they break in electronically, they'll see nothing useful. The next is in transit, and this is where data is going between places. So if I'll use Justin as an example, I send him a text message. As it's being transmitted, it is also encrypted. So as I'm sending information to Atlassian and getting it back, even if someone intercepts that and they see my message of my Confluence page or of my Jira ticket, it'll still also be gibberish because they don't have access. They don't have the keys to get in. So these two concepts are important in encryption. As systems have gotten more mature, some of them may have only encrypted at rest and not in transit. So if you steal the database, you can't see it, but when it's getting sent, you can see the message. So Atlassian does both of these things. So it helps make sure it doesn't matter if someone gets in. They shouldn't get in. There's many other controls. But if they happen to get in, they won't see anything useful. They'll see this encrypted nonsense. Here's a fun question. What does RBAC stand for? And bonus points if you can make up a convincing sounding acronym for RBAC, RBAC. I don't know if you're supposed to say it that way, but I like to pronounce acronyms. So let's just see what y'all can come up with while I drink some coffee out of, what is my Zelda mug. And here we have, Emily, we cannot prove that these aren't the same person. Red and blue are colors. Justin, you're no fun, my friend. Come on. Try something fun. I like Emily's so far the most. So RBAC is role-based access controls in the context of Atlassian and many systems. Now, what this means is when someone joins, you're not just assigning Justin the person certain access. Instead, what you're saying is, hey, we have a role of a customer support agent, and here are the 5 things they can do. So when Justin joins, you give him that role, and then he gets that access. When Chad joins, he is the organizational admin, the org admin, and they can do these things. This is an important concept in security because it lets the administrator define what people can do and then more easily manage it. And this is what Atlassian does, both for the admin level, but also the end user. We see this in a Confluence space when we set it up. Actually, we don't. We don't have RBAC there yet. We see it in Jira when we set up things like Jira Service Management or Jira Customer. Rolls and biscuits are carbs. They are. That is factually true. Real bread are cool. I'm going to have to borrow some of these, team. I love this. Okay. But Atlassian uses RBAC, and you'll see this term in other systems, but as a security best practice to help make sure that we can control who's doing what in our systems. And when I say these controls are in use, they're not just in use on what we as users see. Atlassian's systems on the back end also probably use this to make sure that their engineers are controlled in all of that. The next one is everyone's favorite, audits. We have briefly chatted about auditing in the chat here, but auditing should occur at multiple levels. For example, we should audit our users to make sure that people have the right access. We should audit our licenses to make sure they're applied properly. And these audits should be regular. Every 3 months, I think someone mentioned they check their access. Now, Atlassian does this on their level, and they audit things like who has access to the code, who has done what activities, because audits help ensure security by double checking things. It might uncover something after the fact, or it might prevent something from happening in the future. But these audits are this process by which we review what's happened or how things are set up to make sure it's done properly. I have been through some companies are going public audits. Like that's an extreme where you have to for hours and hours and hours. Chad's still stuck on the RBAC. Love it. But audits don't have to be month-long things. You might say, hey, once a month, I'm going to audit who is an org admin at my organization, just to make sure I know who it is. Frank is pointing out audits don't only have to be about software. You could audit what add-ons are being used in your organization. So these are additional pieces of software that extend the functionality of Atlassian products. So when we think of auditing, it's not just Atlassian doing it on their side. It's also us as the customer making sure our system is being utilized properly. And that helps us be more secure by uncovering potential flaws. Another thing Atlassian does is third-party assistance, and this is a wide range of things. So Atlassian does its own security best practice internally with their engineers and their teams. However, they also bring in other groups, and this could be for what's called pen testing or penetration testing. You may have heard of this maybe in movies or in the news, but a company will hire essentially a group of ethical hackers to come in and try and break into their system. And that then helps companies like Atlassian make stronger systems because those attackers will have found the holes and they'll then fix them. They might also hire third parties to come in and audit because if they do their own audit, they could miss something or they need that confidence that the audit was done properly. Hey, we've paid an outside firm and we just said, come audit us, make sure we're okay. And that can help. Frank is saying audits can help, especially for on lower tiers with those execution amounts for automations. Justin ran an audit and saved his company $4,000 a year. That's awesome. The other thing that third parties can do are code reviews. And so this is where a third party, a bunch of smart engineers come in and they take a look at the code Atlassian wrote to make sure that it's secure and it does what's expected. This is nothing that we as customers need to worry about. Atlassian handles all of this, and that's why many groups use a cloud product, so they don't have to worry about all of these things that is included in that $5 per person per month. Our next question, what is Atlassian Trust? And just a quick reminder, if you haven't, liking the video is very helpful, but also I'm always looking for new ideas on content or how to make these better. So while you're considering this question of what is Atlassian Trust, there's a quick link to a Google form just to let me know what you think of the study sessions, the channel, how I can do better, what else you need. This feedback is important. It's done things like encourage me to do additional sessions, to expand the time of sessions where I can, and also to build additional resources. And I've got one I'll share at the end of this training that folks have. Okay, ha ha ha, very funny. Atlassian Trust is broken and you don't have it. I get it. Honestly, I had no idea what this was, and this is why I do these study sessions and learn this content. Atlassian Trust is a program they have to build trust around the security of their systems and for people to trust the software that it'll be safe and secure. And it's got these 5 pillars: security, privacy, compliance, transparency, and reliability, which is a very ugly acronym. SPCTAR. There's no vowels in there. Oof. But this is something we'll see if you go online and search for Atlassian Trust. It includes things like compliance. And again, another very exciting topic. But Atlassian has done all this work of being ISO 27001 compliant or FedRAMP or GDPR. And depending on where you are in the world, there are different regulations on on what you're allowed to use, depending on who you are. It's a blocked site, Debbie. I'm sorry. It's only a Google form. um, Debbie, there's my email. If you have feedback and are comfortable, you can also pop me an email. I'd love to hear from you if you want. Um, Compliance is an important aspect. For example, Atlassian recently announced that they are FedRAMP certified in the United States. That has no impact on me at all. I don't like it's interesting, but it doesn't affect me. However, that regulation, that compliance regulation now means they can work with the US federal government. In the same way, being GDPR compliant means we can work with folks in Europe under GDPR. And so when we look at groups like Atlassian, seeing the regulations they are complying with is important because it tells me, one, if I have groups, in Europe that fall under GDPR, we can use Atlassian. The second, though, is this tells me they're pretty serious about what they do. They've made the time to go get GDPR and FedRAMP and HIPAA and ISO, whatever, compliance. Now, and a lot of these also mean they are held to a higher standard for audits and security and other things. So as a customer, when I see these listed, I'll go investigate, and Atlassian will have documentation we can go take a look at. Tapiwa, it is on my list of things to get away from Google Forms and just have a Jira work item submission form. I'll see if I can get that done by next week, my friend. But seeing these compliance regulations on a site gives me a lot of confidence in that organization because it means they'll be audited, they'll be held to a higher standard. There's another interesting topic called data residency for cloud products. And basically this refers to where in the world is your information physically located. So when we use a cloud product, Atlassian, and we save a work item or a Confluence page, it's not physically stored on our computers. It might not even be in the same country as we are. It might not even be on the same side of the planet as we are. For most companies, most of the time, this might not matter. For my own personal Jira instance, I don't care if my data is in Australia or Germany or Singapore. However, for some organizations or for some governmental entities, you have to know where your data is, and that's what data residency is. By default in Atlassian Cloud, Atlassian servers just pick the best place and stuff it there. It's global, and that means my information could be in any one of their major data centers. However, if I work with Atlassian, and I assume this is a paid feature, I can say, hey, I'm in Australia, my data has to stay in Australia. Then Atlassian can guarantee my information is only stored on Australian servers. Sorry, Justin, this is fun. So data residency is a concern for some groups. Again, I'll pick on the US government that wants to keep its data in the US. Or maybe, groups in Germany have some regulation for certain data has to stay in Germany. So if your organization, has extra concerns over security or where your data is housed, Atlassian has a solution for that. That's the term data residency. How comfortable are you all? Atlassian Intelligence, mainly from the lens of security. So how comfortable are you with Atlassian Intelligence I? Whatever the plural is security. And in a bonus, what does AI run on? In the same way Atlassian doesn't have its own data centers, it's running on AWS, Amazon Web Service, what does Atlassian Intelligence run on? Justin's going to be forced to use Atlassian Intelligence. I would be curious how they do that, my friend. Do they just hire people to stand over your shoulder and make sure you use it? I say that tongue in cheek. How do you force someone to use an AI product? Well, it's interesting, Debbie, because you're actually using OpenAI when you're using Atlassian Intelligence. This one to me was interesting, and I didn't know this. But when we think of all of the LLMs, the large language model AI tools that have come out in the past 2.5 years, that's also mind-blowing. It's only been about 2.5 years since this type of tool was available. And look at the impact it's starting to have. In my mind, it's still a very nascent, a very small impact. But Atlassian Intelligence is, powered by OpenAI. Negative comfort with Atlassian Intelligence. All right, folks, I can tell you're less than fans. However, regardless of our personal thoughts and feelings, this exists and it will continue to exist. And so when we consider using these tools, we have to be prepared for how does that impact our organization? And many organizations are going to be, I won't say shy, but a little bit less than eager to accept it if they don't understand how it's managed. And so things that we need to understand, especially for the purposes of this exam, the ACA 915, even though we're using OpenAI, none of the stuff we send through AI goes into their models. So there's a big concern with AI. If I type in something, oh, Google then takes my information and uses that to improve its modeling. Atlassian has said, no, you can't do that. So anything I put through Atlassian Intelligence doesn't get pulled into OpenAI. And also, requests are sent over SSL. Make up an acronym for SSL. Go. So for giggles, make up an acronym for SSL. It stands for Secure Socket Layer. It is another security encryption and security protocol that ensures when I send a request to OpenAI, the only thing that can read it is OpenAI in that area that is protected and secure. So that means when I send something to OpenAI, other people can't see it and snoop on it. So this is a direct, this helps answer the question that someone asks, like, is it safe and secure to use Atlassian Intelligence? Because I don't know where that's going. It's going to OpenAI, it doesn't go into their models, and it's secured with SSL. Now, on top of that, that's all on the Atlassian side. Admins can control the use of AI. So that means my admin, if I'm on Justin's team, Justin may decide we're not going to use it. The risk is still too great. So they just turn it off. Problem solved. So that's the configuration layer of security that we are responsible for. Super secure light. I like that one. Sing song language. Ooh, that's a fun one. Kythra doesn't trust OpenAI. That's fair. And these are all things that we need to understand and consider. And Kythra's objection is they trained its models on copywritten, on protected materials. And so these are all things to consider when we're using these tools. And that is another great reason to study for these certifications. So we learn how the thing works. We could bring this up and someone could say, I don't want to do that. And then we can ask them why. And they can give us a great reason, just like Kythra had. Or maybe they don't understand it at all. And we can then at least explain it so they have that information. So this is where learning this stuff is important. There's one more bullet point here. If data residency is turned on, data for the OpenAI stuff in Atlassian Intelligence stays in your region. Frank, secure in quotes. So Frank is getting, correct me if I'm wrong, my friend. Anytime we say something is secured, that means that with the best available methods and to the best of our knowledge, right? I can't prove that hackers from some country haven't already broken in and stolen everything. So every time you hear me say the word secured, to the best of our knowledge, Atlassian is doing everything that everyone agrees is appropriate, and they haven't found any problems or issues. That doesn't mean in 3 days someone might find a way to break in. That just means, as best as we can tell, everyone's doing the best they possibly can. Chad, I like secret squirrel language. That's going to be my new thing. I have the power to not power on AI. 100%, Debbie. All right. What is an org admin? Moving on from Atlassian Intelligence. And if you recall at the start, I have never been an org admin. So that's something I just need to be straight up. Frank's pointing out another, I think this is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying it, but we're using a cloud product. And so that means we are beholden to Atlassian's T&C, terms and conditions. So Frank is correct here. Atlassian could decide next week to change that. Now, I don't believe that that would happen. Like, Atlassian, in my mind, is a pretty on-the-level organization. However, when we use any SaaS product, we are giving something to that company. When I use Google Mail, for example, I am stuck with whatever Google decides to do. I don't have the power to change Google's mind. So the same thing is true with an Atlassian product. And that's where organizations have to make decisions with a lot of information. And that's why, again, studying this stuff is important. So we can go to our team and say, here is how it works. Do we want to accept that? And then we have to make this decision. Justin is an org admin. So Justin, could you please teach the next part of this? Just because you know what's going on. I'm going to step back. I'll let you take over. Okay, go, Justin. It didn't work? Nuts. Now, before we really dig into org admin, we need to understand how the structure of cloud is broken down. And the highest bits of that are organizations, and within them sites. An organization contains products, sites, and users. So a site would be something like jquill.atlassian.com or jquill-eu.atlassian.com. And within that, I'll have products. Now, a site can have one or more product in it. So here I see a site that has Jira, Confluence, and Trello, and the site is Heen-Tech. But it can't have two Jiras. If my organization got big enough and I had to have another Jira for some reason, I would have to have another site. So I might have Heen-Tech-legal, and my legal team. Did my camera just die? Oh, no camera. I'll see if I can fix that while I'm talking. A fun challenge for Rob. So I'll have an organization at the highest level is comprised of some number of sites. I got to move my mic here. There we go. And each of these can have an admin. So we can have, there's the org admin, which is the highest level admin, and they are responsible for managing all of it. And again, that's the layer that I have not had. And apparently I exist in a black hole. There we go. Woo! Thank you to Rob. Thank you for the tech support. Rob, you're very welcome. Get back to your live stream. All right. That org admin is, what we think of when we think of the Atlassian admin at a company. Typically, this person is in IT. Typically, there's only one, maybe two of these. Justin, maybe we should coordinate on this. Everyone stand up and say, I'm the org admin. Now, I borrowed this infographic from Atlassian Learning, so all credit to our friends at Atlassian, but this is a great way that they break this down. I'll also show you where this learning lives, so you can also get this through another lens and another perspective. But this visual breaks down an organization. They love the term Woozlemania. If anyone knows what that's from, I would love to know. But in this case, they have three different sites. They've got an Indian site, a French site, and a Spanish site. And they each have different products listed. So this is a way of visually breaking down what's going on. Uh-oh, is my audio okay? I can start doing the bad lip syncing, but that's just going to really confuse people. So here I can visually see the breakdown. Now this is, you won't see something like this if you go into the system, and it can be very confusing if you don't understand there are different sites. Typically, organizations won't have multiple sites. You will see this if you have a need to split users out. For example, Woozle India may be working on super secret things that Woozle France shouldn't know about. So that might be an argument to have a different site. Or maybe you just have so many people in Woozle Spain, you want to give them access to their own stuff that has their own special setup that you don't need to give to Woozle France. Now, there is a special product, I'll put this in air quotes, that showed up. Justin's watching us through VPN, Virtual Private Network. Are you secure, my friend? This Jira Administrator product only shows up when you also have Jira. And I'm pointing this out because this probably will show up on the exam. So just so you aren't confused, Jira Administrator is a special product and only admins will see it. So if you hear people talking about the Jira Administrator product, that's what this is, but it's also a clue that there's Jira included in that site because it cannot exist without Jira, and Jira will always have it. So again, if you're sitting the exam, it's these kind of things that we just need to know. Now, additionally, we have this admin hub, and this is at admin.atlassian.com. And then hopefully we'll have a few minutes to go look at this, but this is a central place for the org admins to go to see everything. This will show you things like usage statistics. This will show you things like how many people have an account. It will let you go into different products that you have, invite people, and you can also do things like delegate access. So you can give site admin the ability to control a site to other people to help out. So again, think you're that global company. You might have someone in India have site admin for the Indian site and someone in Spain site admin for the Spanish site, just so you don't have to deal with it all. Smaller organizations, though, that all might be one person. And at some point, they might decide, hey, we need more admins to help out. Oh, I forgot. What does Atlassian Guard do? I think there's one more question. Yeah, what is Atlassian Guard? It spams you with emails. And while we're going, I'll put that Discord link again. We've got about 110 people in there with a wide range of discussions, I'll say. Atlassian Guard, I haven't used this personally. Again, I haven't been that org admin. And a lot of people in the chat don't seem to like it so far. It's a way to centralize your access management. So larger organizations would probably need this. Now, I included it here because one, it's a product we need to know about, and two, it will show up on the exam, probably. I can't guarantee it. I don't know what all the questions are. But it's only for managed accounts, and the billing is different. So instead of billing by user, it just bills by the instance. So it's not concerned with a site or a product. It's across the whole thing. And it's got a lot of features, again, that are deeper into the security realm. Things like authentication policies, better audit logs, API tokens, behavior monitoring, threat detection. We don't have to memorize all of these things. We just have to be aware that Guard exists, and it helps improve the security of our instance. Now, I did mention the billing is different as well. That's something else that in the training they call out quite a bit. So that's a hint that, hey, this might show up if we choose to sit the exam. I mentioned the admin hub a bit. All right, and that's my last slide. Whew. I will take the next few minutes and we will jump into the admin hub in one of my organizations so you can see what it looks like. But I'll drop this feedback link again and you'll see me. I hope I don't spam this too much, but please let me know what you think of the sessions, what's useful, what isn't, and what you'll find helpful. And then I also have another link that I'll share in just a minute. I put a quiz together for the ACA-915. So again, something you can go in and you can try and test your knowledge against, if I can go find it. I'll share that link in a moment. Excuse me. But here is my cue to teleport into Atlassian. So here I am in Confluence. And what I can do from here, up in the top, and my zoom isn't going to work. If I mouse over this, I'll see all the organizations I'm part of. So I've got JQuil, I've got Heen Tech, I've got community leaders, beginners. So these are all the different instances I've spun up. Now, if I click into one, I'll see all the products that are associated with it. So here's the site at the top, one called JQuil. Great. And this has the products of Jira, Confluence, Loom, JSM, etc., etc., etc. Most people won't have many options in here. You can see I've spun up a whole bunch and I've been invited to others. Yes, Frank? How may I help you? It's build across the instance, though, Justin. It's not just by site. All right, portal-only accounts. So this is another split in users. We have people who can log in and see Confluence, for example, or we have people who can log in and do things like work on tickets. But in Jira Service Management, we can also have customers, people who don't pay. They can put in tickets, but then we pay for the agents. So if we go... Okay, I'll get to the administration first. Logging in. So these are all of the things I have access to. I'll open up Heen Tech. Sorry, Justin, I'm going to get rid of your comment. And here's my admin panel. And this is where I get information about what's going on in here. I can invite folks. I can instantly add a new product. And so this is, again, what I see as the org admin. And I can learn more about all of these wonderful things. We'll talk about some of these different products as we go. I can also do things like validate the domain. I haven't done that here. I'm just going to use Atlassian Cloud's domain, he-tech.atlassian.net. It's a great indication that we are on Confluence Cloud. Justin's got a good question here. Customers, different types of users can be internal or external to your organization. Some might work at your company and they put in tickets for help with IT. Others might be external customers. They use your products and you want to collect information from them. So there's different ways we can set up our users. I do want to show the Atlassian learning page for this certification. I'll share the link. But all of Atlassian's training is free. I think I can send you directly to the 915. There it is. This is Atlassian's official page on it. It's got all the details about what's covered, those breakdowns of percentages, information on the exam. But if you keep going down, there's a start prepping for free button. And so this is a great place to go to get more information. This is all free stuff on demand. I think you do need an Atlassian Learning account, which you can just set up a free Google one. But this is a great place to go to get more information on these things, where you can dig in and learn a lot more about it from Atlassian. So in addition to these trainings, this is a great place to go, or maybe this is a great place to go, and then additionally jump in on these trainings. All right. One last self-promotion here. I do have a course on Confluence over on Udemy. It's 4 hours on how to use Confluence successfully. The link, this QR code, will take you to a discount version for it. Please feel free to use it yourself or share it. My goal with that course is to make sure folks know as much as possible about these tools, and you'll see me rolling out more of these. The goal being you shouldn't have to fight and struggle with your system to get something out of it. See you, Chad. All right, so our next session will be next Friday. Of course, they'll all be recorded. I've got a playlist. But between now and then, please go study. Please go check out that Atlassian Learning. Please jump into your own instance and explore. Please talk to the org admin at your organization and see what's going on. If you want to take the exam, that 1 hour a week we have may not be enough. So the more you can do to get comfortable with these topics and ideas is important. I do also have a quiz, which I need to go find very quickly, wherever I put it, on the ACA-915. Here we go. I put it together in a Google form, and I need to work on the look and the feel. But I'll drop that in here too. The idea being you can take this quiz just to kind of test your knowledge. So feel free to take that quiz. Let me know what you think. It's another attempt to make these more useful to all of you. As folks have mentioned, there is a Discord channel, so you can jump in there and ask questions and get help. And I do want to thank you all for learning with me. I learned a lot putting these slides together and thinking through how the 915 works. And as some folks are mentioning, Monday is a holiday in the US, so there will be no study session. I need to go move that. Otherwise, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. That helps. Let me know your feedback on how this can be better for all of you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again in a week. I'll leave the chat open for a little bit so folks can drop in last minute questions or any other information. But jump into that Discord, shoot me your questions at my email, robert@heen.tech. I'll be happy to help out. And have a great weekend wherever you happen to be.